Time for some more history, the Nike years. My connections with Nike. Well, I originally became familiar with Nike through Runner's World magazine back in the early 70s, and then in college, as a sophomore in college, I had just run a 2:30:02 marathon at the White Rock Marathon in 1977. That would have been December of 1977, and I saw an advertisement in Runner's World magazine for Blue Ribbon Sports and decided to give them a call and ask about some Nike shoes I had seen in a photograph of a particular marathon. And I called up and I actually got Jeff Hollister on the phone. For those who know, Jeff Hollister was one of the early big wheels at Nike, co-founders Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman, and Jeff Hollister basically got Nike moving back in the 70s. Jeff actually ran Blue Ribbon Sports out of the back of his car and would go to races and sell Nike shoes. Well, Jeff actually answered the phone and talked to me for a while, and I asked him about some shoes I'd seen in a photograph. He said, "Oh, those are the Nike Elite Racer." And I said, "Man, I would love to get a hold of some of those. Are they for sale?" He said, "Well, what size are you? I'll send you some." So he actually sent me a free pair of Nike shoes, my first pair ever of free shoes. I wore the shoes only 2 days later after I received them in the Houston Marathon, and it was not a good idea not to break the shoes in. I fried my feet. I ran a 2:33 marathon, finished second in the 19 and under category, but my feet were totally fried. They were awesome shoes, but I should have broken them in a little bit first. Anyway, I was very honored that Jeff would do such a wonderful thing. I had actually run that 2:30 in a pair of Nike waffle trainers, the old blue and yellow waffle trainers. I vowed that someday I would work for Nike, and as I mentioned before, I moved to Eugene, Oregon after my college graduation and did get a job with Nike Eugene, the retail store, and for 3 years I worked in Eugene. Nike was really good about helping athletes pursue their training goals, their marathon goals, etc., and they allowed me to work from 10 to 3:30 or 10 to 4, and I would run 10 miles before work, 10 miles after work. I was very loyal to Nike for many, many years. Actually, I worked with them for 3 years, 3 in Eugene, and then almost maybe a 6-month period in Berkeley. That's why I actually left Eugene in August of 1984. I received an offer to be the assistant manager at Nike Berkeley, working with manager Chris Walsh, and I somewhat reluctantly accepted the position. I was thrilled to move up in the company, but I was heartbroken to leave Eugene after 3 wonderful years. But I decided to make the move, and it was a good move. I loved Berkeley. The Bay Area is awesome. The running there is awesome. The trails are awesome, and through Nike Berkeley, I met a lot of new friends, of course. I met Ted Quintana, who was the former Nike Berkeley manager, and at the time was an Eakin tech shoe rep. That is Nike spelled backwards. And Ted and Sandy became good friends. Chris and his wife, I went to their wedding. Ted, I'm pretty sure, was in the wedding, if I remember correctly. And Sil Pascal actually became friends at that time. I ran into him at a race in San Jose, the Mercury News 10K, and later when I left Nike, Sil and I became even better friends and training partners. But the Berkeley years, the Berkeley year, I should say, I lived about 2 miles from the store, so I would often run or walk to the store and then run or walk home, getting in extra mileage. I enjoyed the experience of retail assistant managership and learned a lot about business, about ordering, about pre-ordering shoes and dealing with customers. That was actually a very valuable experience. But in early 1985, Nike decided they were going to have cutbacks and they were going to close the Berkeley store. They actually gave me an option of moving back to Eugene. I wouldn't have been the assistant manager, just retail again, or staying in Berkeley, helping with the closing of the store, and then maybe finding a job in some other area, since I had fallen in love with the Bay Area. Hard choice, because moving back to Eugene would have been awesome, but I decided to stay in the Bay Area, and luckily made a connection with Runner's World magazine and got a job with Runner's World. So I left Nike Berkeley just before the store closed and started working for Runner's World. That will be another video, future occupation obviously. And there again, Nike was so good to me, and I actually wore Nike shoes for a total of over 37 years. I did experiment with other brands, I'll be totally honest, during the 90s and early 2000s, but I always came back to Nike. It was always a shoe that seemed to fit my foot the best, and I felt loyal to them. And another neat story, I actually went to the 2012 Olympic trials in Eugene and ran into Phil Knight, and Phil Knight remembered my name and remembered me working at Nike Eugene. Guys, that's awesome. I mean, Phil Knight, one of the richest men in the world, has met thousands and thousands of people and has had thousands and thousands of employees, but he was always that way. I remember him always in blue jeans and sunshades coming to all the Nike events when I was in Eugene, and he remembered me. That was kind of made me feel really special that he would remember someone from so many years ago. And yeah, I have nothing bad to say about Nike. I definitely don't agree with some of their decisions they've made with some of the athletes and that have been involved in doping scandals, etc. But Nike as a company was always really good to me, and so I guess that is a negative thing to say, but politically and otherwise, you know, that's two different stories. I definitely owe them a lot, and I don't wear Nike shoes anymore. I'm very happy with my connections with Ultra, but Nike really was a big reason that I not only moved to Eugene, but that I had the success I did in running, because they kept me healthy for the most part and were very good to me and good to some of the athletes I coached in later years. So kudos to Nike. More on my Eugene experience. My next video will be focusing on the wonderful McChesney family. Thank you for watching, and if you like the videos, give them a thumbs up and share. For those of you who have commented about these walks down memory lane, man, I'm glad someone out there is as old as I am and can remember some of those years and some of those names and places and some of the history of running. We actually were running at a wonderful time. The running boom was huge in America, and man, I really love looking back and reminiscing. Take care.